Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour at the beginning of a shelter-in-place order to help us all remain connected through stories. And several months later, here we still are. I have to say I've been thinking this past week about Story Hour and how wonderful it's been to have it through the pandemic and all the crazy things that have been happening. When that train in the Netherlands went off its track and got caught by a couple of statues, did everyone see that story? You ended up with a train on a pair of statues that looked like whale flukes. And fortunately, no one was hurt. And, I thought at first, kind of flippantly, well, art's just going to save us all. And then I realized that, having Story Hour every Wednesday, knowing that every Wednesday I can look forward to two different voices and two or more different complete stories, that has sort of held me up many a week as well. And that's really what Story Hour, I think, is for all of us to stay together and have something to look forward to. So welcome back to those of you who've been here before, and welcome those of you joining us for the first time. As always, we have two writers, and they're reading for their favorite nonprofits. Tonight, we have Maria Haskins and Angel Leigh McCoy. If you are fortunate enough to help others, please continue a donation to one or both of our two featured nonprofits, Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary or the Progressive Animal Welfare Society. This is kind of neat because both of you spontaneously came up with ways to help the animals who are part of our lives. Maria Haskins is reading for Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary. Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary is a nonprofit society whose purpose is to provide rescue and protection for parrots. Through its adoption program, Greyhaven strives to place parrots in new, loving homes. Greyhaven provides education and support to parrot guardians and the general public. Greyhaven opposes the breeding and selling of parrots through pet stores, bird marts, or via the internet. You can learn more at greyhavenbirds.com, and that's gray with an E. Angel Leigh McCoy is reading for the Progressive Animal Welfare Society, PAWS. PAWS helps cats, dogs, and wild animals go home and thrive, whether home is the family room or the forest. The society does this by rehabilitating orphaned and injured wildlife, sheltering and adopting homeless cats and dogs, and educating the community to inspire compassionate action for animals. Since 1967, PAWS has united more than 130,000 cats and dogs with loving families, cared for more than 140,000 sick, injured, and orphaned wild animals, and made the world a better place for countless others through outreach, education, and advocacy. You can learn more at paws.org/donate. If you're here with us tonight on Zoom, please feel free to leave your camera on. It's really nice for the readers to actually see the people who are at the reading and interact with them a little bit. We would appreciate it though if you would mute. If you are joining us on Facebook, we're sorry, but we are not seeing your messages in real time. However, if you're here with us on Zoom, please feel free to join the chat. And our first reader tonight is Maria Haskins. Oh, no, wait, it's not Maria. I switched things around and I almost just startled both of you. I'm sorry. Our first reader tonight is Angel Leigh McCoy. Angel Leigh McCoy creates horror and dark fantasy fiction. Her fiction has appeared in numerous media, and her novelette Charlie Darwin, or The Trine of 1809, was published by Never Met Press. She has also had stories appear in Strange Eons, Necrotic Tissue, Beast Within 2, Fear of the Dark, and Growing Dread, Biopunk Visions, among others. Her story Crack-a-Doom, printed at the anthology Fear of the Dark, earned her an honorable mention in Ellen Datlow's Best Horror of the Year, Volume 4, 2012. Angel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It is our pleasure. Please just go ahead and take it away.
Go? Okay,
yes.
I'll dive in.
I've talked enough.
You did a great job. Yeah, my name is Angel Leigh McCoy, and I've been a writer for many, many years, usually in the games industry. But most recently, I've started writing novels, and I have 3 of them that I published recently. I also published a collection of short fiction that has been a focus of mine for, a quarter of a century. So this is my collection, and the story that I'll be reading tonight is from this book. It's called Oral Tradition, and I wrote it many years ago when I was living in Virginia. I had moved there, and I discovered that Virginia has many ghosts, many ghosts, and a long history of pain and suffering and all of that. This is a dark story. So I'll just dive in. Oral tradition. My granny had only 2 teeth in the front on the bottom. They sat crooked, pitted, and decaying, and her lips fell inward into the chasm of her mouth. Faded and splotchy, her black face had the contours of a dried apple doll, molded with a bulbous nose. She had eyes like drops of molasses swimming in bloody egg whites, and her skin matched her homemade dress, a wrinkled sack without enough meat to fill it. Once, when I was very small, I asked her why she had only 2 teeth. Granny replied, "Honey, I ain't got enough room for all them teeth. There's too many stories in there. They done pushed all my other ones out." She put a seasoned finger in her mouth, tapped the dual bits that remained, and added, "These 2, they're the only ones that matter." My granny knew so many folk tales. Something always reminded her of one: an old tree or the railroad tracks, a thunderstorm or the hoot of an owl. "Girl," she began so many times with her earth husky voice, "did I ever tell you the story about—" When Granny told a story, she licked her 2 teeth. She sucked at them, making wet, slurping noises that punctuated her accounts of castrations, eviscerations, and lynchings. Granny wasn't the first storyteller in our family. The tradition goes back many generations. My great-great-great-grandmother arrived on a slave ship from Africa, purchased and given a Christian name by a Virginia plantation owner. She worked in the tobacco fields until the end of the Civil War, when her husband bought a church and took up preaching. She started the tradition and passed it on to her daughter, who passed it on to her daughter, and so on. The stories have come down through the family. After the emancipation, most of my ancestors left Virginia and moved to Ohio, where they joined self-sufficient Negro communities, initially founded by manumitted or escaped slaves to serve as stops on the Underground Railroad. Only the storytellers remained in Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the yarns originated and where the ghosts still haunted. Technically, the storyteller badge should have fallen to my mother, Granny's only child, but Mama never wanted anything to do with it. Born in 1948, Mama matured during the 60s, in an era during which people rejected tradition in favor of instant pleasure, social upheaval, and political rebellion. Mama wanted to travel, smoke dope, and focus on creating her own story. She wanted out of Pulaski, out of the mountains, and out from under her heritage. Her marriage in 1966 to my father rescued her from the country lifestyle. He took her to New York, and I was born several years later. Granny always knew that my mother wouldn't accept the responsibility. One day, many years ago, when I was barely 13, I was sitting at Granny's kitchen table. Granny was standing over me, picking a tick from my head. She said, "Child, it's going to be you someday, the one who tells the stories. You're going to have to think about that. Your mama don't want to do it, but somebody's got to. If we lose the stories, we lose our past, and that just ain't right." Granny's yarns had a spooky backwoods feel, but then she had come from the backwoods and rarely left them. She did, however, like to brag about how she had once traveled from her home in Pulaski County to visit the big city of Richmond, previously the Confederate capital. Her daddy had taken her there to see the battlefields where his father and uncles had fought and died to free the slaves. She left Pulaski only one other time, the day my mama gave birth to me. Granny rode a Greyhound bus all the way to New York City. Otherwise, if we wanted to see Granny, we had to go to her. After I turned 8, I spent 2 weeks every summer at her Appalachian farm. Staying with her was a child's dream. She and I baked cookies. We played cards. We hunted sponge mushrooms for frying and wild manroot for Granny's tonic. We watched the deer and wild turkey on the ridge and listened to the mountain lions calling out to each other. Of course, it had its bad points too. Granny refused to modernize the farm. We used an outhouse for lack of indoor plumbing. I hated hanging my bottom over that black hole with its spiders and foul smells. We cooked on a wood stove and washed in a basin. At night, we did everything by kerosene lamp. Once in a while, Granny and I killed a chicken for our dinner. I'll never forget the time that the headless fowl jerked away from Granny in its death throes. It fell to the ground and came straight at me, straight for me, flapping and flopping. Its severed neck spattered blood all over the pen. I ran, screaming, all the way to the house. Granny laughed and laughed with her 2 teeth. She had to show me the very limp, very dead chicken before I would come out again. I helped pluck the carcass, enacting my own bit of revenge, and got my fingers all sticky with blood, feathers, and mites. My fondest memories revolve around the nights when Granny told me ghost stories. We crawled into the creaky old bed under the heavy quilts, me in my flannel pajamas and Granny in her white nightie. She tucked us in and we settled down. Then she told me the tales. The mountain winds rattled the windows, whistled in the attic, accompanying her intense, scratchy narrations. If Granny's stories frightened me too much, if I cried or had a nightmare, she held me close and made me feel safe again. In retrospect, maybe that's why I loved them so much. They put drama and mystery into an urban child's otherwise structured life. Granny always spoke as if she had actually witnessed every event. And in my childish ignorance of time periods and Granny's age, I believed she had. My favorites included the ghost that haunted the Lyric Theater. A mob of white men stabbed him to death the night he planned to propose to his sweetheart. Another involved a slave that had escaped from Monticello, only to find himself in the hands of several whites who recognized him. They chained him to their wagon and beat him, then made him walk all the way back to his master and their reward. When he couldn't walk anymore, they dragged him. The slave died. Near the railroad tracks on dark nights, the clanking of his chains and the hopelessness of his sobs still carry through the woods, according to Granny. Knowing what the stories meant to Granny and knowing that I was just one in a long line of storytellers made me feel important. And I vowed that no matter what, I'd carry on the tradition. Time passes, however, and as I got older, I grew away from my heritage. With adulthood came college and boyfriends, marriage, divorce, and a career that pulled me away from my family. I moved to Washington, D.C., joined the hordes of executive assistants in their black suit dresses and their tennis shoes. I quit visiting Granny as often and forgot many of the stories she had told me. I tried to write a few of them down, but I confused them or lost details such as names and places. Then my Granny died. The funeral weighed upon me as if 1,000 people had died, not just Granny. I had to make peace with myself over the lost oral tradition. I told myself it wasn't my fault. The Granny, damn it, should have written those stories down or gotten me to transcribe them for her. In the weeks that followed, I made a renewed effort to document what I could. But despite the many, many nights I had spent listening, wide-eyed to Granny's stories, I could only remember a few. I vowed to contact my mother as soon as I found time and pick her brain for all the little details I couldn't remember. Surely she had some recollection of the stories. Surely. Then my mother died. She went to bed one night and never woke up. Heart attack. My daddy said he hadn't been sleeping well. My daddy said she hadn't been sleeping well since Granny's funeral. After we buried my mother, after the parade of kind smiles and the offerings of homemade cake, the memories and the black lace, the hugs and the handshakes, I was glad to go home. The nightmares started shortly thereafter. In my dreams, I ran through never-ending forests. Branches caught at my clothes and scratched me. Faces, elusive and intense, peered out of the shadows. Voices called to me. I heard my name whispered in 1,000 timbers. One morning, I awoke in a cold sweat. Images from my dreams followed me through my normal activities, preyed on my mind all day. I went for a drive, trying to shake the specters. Thoughts of history and ancestral connections, my own cosmic place in the universe, haunted me as I sped down I-81 through the Shenandoah Valley. I ended up on the Blue Ridge Parkway with its panoramic views and communities older than the United States. A short drive turned into a 5-hour meditation. It got dark. I found myself in Pulaski County. Rather than drive all the way home, I decided to stop by Granny's farm and make sure no one had disturbed anything. Granny had left the farm to me, along with the 30 acres of land surrounding it, including the family cemetery in the corner of the lot. I hadn't decided what I planned to do with the place, and I hadn't been back since the day of Granny's funeral. When I arrived that night, the place felt too quiet without Granny. Flashlight in hand, I searched the rooms. The roving light put everything in tunnel perspective, pinpointing moments in time and disconnected pieces of history. I felt uneasy, so I lit a couple of oil lamps. The homey, familiar glow eased my tension. The farmhouse smelled musty. I opened some windows to air it out. The hearth held a pile of burned logs and ash. I swept it. Guilt made me clean and straighten Granny's things. Her mementos cluttered shelves, vases and photographs, trinkets and china, and the musket balls we had gathered up by Mountain Lake. Her thimble collection lurked in a shadow box near the chimney. She had made the crocheted afghan spread across the back of the couch. Bits of me roosted here and there as well. My school photos stood in neat rows upon the mantelpiece, a collage of my childhood, wallet-sized mingled with 8x10s, bad haircuts, missing baby teeth, and embarrassing fashions. The plaque I had made for Granny, my 6-year-old handprint cast in plaster and painted dirty gold, hung on the wall behind the armchair. The cuckoo clock in the hall struck 10. I dreaded the drive back to town, down those long and windy country roads in the dark. I decided to spend the night. I settled on the couch, comfortable with my notebook and pen, prepared to make some notes for work. A cool breeze whiffled through the lace curtains, carrying with it the aroma of magnolia. I thought of Granny telling me to peel a couple of potatoes. In my mind, I saw her offer me the cookie dough spoon for licking. I heard the click, click, shuffle click of her shoes as she crossed the floor. The temperature dipped, and I pulled the knitted afghan, a hodgepodge of faded color, down over my legs. I closed my eyes just for a moment and must have dozed off. I found myself in a nebulous place where there were eyes watching me, white eyes in black faces. The porch creaked. I awoke. Suddenly wide awake, I listened intently, unsure whether I had actually heard anything or not. The lamps had burned down and let the shadows creep out of their corners. My heart pattered. The knob turned on the front door. I scrambled to my feet. My notebook fell to the floor with a thud. The door opened. I watched it swing inward toward me. "Who's there?" I called. "Who is it?" I looked around for a weapon and found only the lantern. My hand shook as I reached for it. A figure stood on the threshold, a black form silhouetted against the darker black of the night outside. I saw the hem of her dress rippling in the air, flowing into the house. She stood there, head bowed, arms hanging loose at her sides. I could tell she was small and frail, perhaps elderly. I relaxed slightly. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Were you a friend of my grandmother's?" The woman lifted her head. Her dark eyes shone like marbles. My heart accelerated. A wave of darkness followed her to the edge of the dim circles of light cast by the oil lamps. I told myself I must be mistaken. And then she sucked on her two front teeth. My granny had come looking for me, in her funeral dress, an odd combination of bloating and shrinkage. Mud covered her bare feet. "Child," she said in my head rather than in my ears, "I knew you'd come." Her mouth didn't move. She shuffled further into the room and looked around at her things. Something alive moved in her hair. "It's cold on the other side, child," Granny said into my mind. She sounded as natural as if she'd just walked in from feeding the chickens. "I need to be moving on." I thought maybe I was dreaming. "Now that your mama's dead, the tradition passes on to you." I tried to wake up. Granny caressed her dirty blue-white fingers over a Norman Rockwell statuette. She tapped a thick, cracked and yellowed nail against the face of an antique Aunt Jemima bottle. Her voice sounded in my head. "I'm sorry about your mama, but well, there's a lot more at stake here than her fancy cars and theater tickets. A lot of people were counting on her. She always was a selfish, weak child." Heavy footsteps sounded on the veranda and approached the front door. Momentarily, a tall, thick-muscled black man entered the room. He wore the attire of a blacksmith from the 19th century, including the heavy leather apron. His image shifted in the breeze like laundry hung out to dry, but upside down, with inverted gravity, anchored by his feet to the floor. Around his neck, he had the unmistakable mark of a rope burn. I stumbled back into an end table. Clumsy, I placed it between me and my visitors. Others followed. Granny greeted them all as if they were old friends. They wore varied clothing, some ragged, some elegant, but all from a lost time, the 19th or early 20th century. The most modern came from the Depression era. I recognized many of them from the stories Granny had told me. A young woman entered. Little remained of her dress, just patches here and there melted to her. Her arms crossed her chest where fire had frozen them, had cooked the meat, sinew, and muscle into hard bundles. She had no hair. The flames had split and charred her skin. I couldn't tell whether she had been black or white while alive. In death, she was black as char. Her eyes had welded shut and her mouth slashed strangely across her face, too wide, torn. Another man followed her, a Union soldier, black. His arm hung out of socket at the shoulder, wrong, and his knees crooked backwards. Cuts, bruises, and lumps covered his face, and the stump of his tongue showed in his gaping mouth. Blood drained over his bottom lip, dripping off his jaw with the regularity of a leaky faucet. A second mouth opened wide at the back of his neck. The slash through his muscle dropped his head into a perpetually obedient bow. Two white women arrived, dressed in peach antebellum gowns. Twins, they had dark, dark eyes that glistened like those of a crow. Their hair flowed down past their waists, swaying in an ethereal draft. They seemed unmarked, but as they approached, I noticed that one of them showed the swell of pregnancy. The smell of almonds, oversweet and ripe, accompanied them. I had heard their story from Granny. Their own father, upon learning that they had lain with slaves and that one carried the child of her black lover, had poisoned them with arsenic. A young boy, mulatto, ran into the room and climbed up onto the couch. His nose sat crooked, broken, and his jaw dangled uncontrollably. One side of his head had a crusty indent, broken bits of skull and folds of brain showing where someone had bludgeoned him. He crouched and waved at me. I swayed, dizzy, and leaned back against the wall to keep from collapsing. More came, more and more. Children and adults, men and women, black and white. They piled in and turned to watch me, whispering to one another. They filled the house, the porch, and the lawn. They crowded around the windows. None of them had much physical substance, their ghostly countenances all the more disturbing for the way they shifted and moved, stretched and rippled. Only Granny still had her body. Suddenly, they grew silent, all on cue, alert and waiting. I couldn't breathe in the confining space, trapped there with all those ghosts, all those stories. A sense of anticipation crowded me. Your mama, mine whispered Granny, rejected us, our stories and her inheritance. It's up to you now. All these, she indicated the specters in the room, those pressed tight to the threshold and those hanging outside the windows. All these stories got to be told. We ain't nothing if we ain't got no past, no history. No, they ain't pretty, but that's who we were and who we don't never hope to be again. The sound of my own blood rushed in my ears like a river cut loose from a dam. I looked around at all those miserable faces, at all the victims of murder, negligence, prejudice, and injustice. Their stories, told in the guise of folk tales, embodied all the ugliness of our past. I had stopped believing Granny's stories. I had come to think they were just interesting tales meant to frighten children and pass the time. Face to face with them, however, I couldn't ignore them. That, in some strange way, affected me more deeply than standing in the company of my dead grandmother. You're the last of the line, child. You ain't going to have no babies, but that's okay. It's time to put it all down on paper, just like you said, for future generations. You're the only one who can do that now. Will you do it, girl? Her voice echoed and others joined in on the chorus. Will ya? Will ya? Will ya? Will ya? I put my hands over my ears. Yes, yes. The stories breathed a sigh of relief. Their whispers rippled outward around me as if I were a pebble dropped into the pool of the afterlife. Bless you, child, Granny thought at me. Slowly, I lowered my hands. With crawling, dry fingers, Granny began to dig inside her lips. She removed the plastic guard the mortician had placed there to give her mouth a more natural contour. Her lips sank inward without the support. Then she inserted the fingers of both hands between her gums. She tugged downward on her jaw. It resisted. Granny? I gasped. Suddenly, the pin that kept her jaw closed pulled free from the roof of her mouth. The sound of cracking cartilage made me cringe. The ghosts shivered. A steel wire flapped out across her lips, bobbed there, still attached below her swollen tongue. A piece of gray flesh clung to the pin at the wire's end. Granny turned her yellowed, filmy eyes upon me and worked her jaw up and down. Those two teeth, with their rotten black cores, and brownish stained surfaces did a morbid dance as Granny flexed muscles unused for several weeks. I stared, frozen. Granny then reached into her mouth and took hold of one of her teeth. She pulled. The rotted thing emerged from its fleshy pocket with a wet squitch. My stomach churned and I covered my mouth. Tears blurred my vision. Granny, I pleaded, tearing my eyes from the sight. I've got to get out of here. I rushed headlong into the crowd of ghosts and headed for the door. I had to get out. I had to get home. I had to wake up. But the ghosts clutched at me. They refused to let me pass. They blocked my path and held me back. I found myself lifted off the floor, arms out, legs spread, immobilized by a dozen or more hands. They turned me back toward Granny. I struggled to no avail. Granny, I said I'd do it. Granny came toward me, both teeth in her hand. An ooze of pink fluid drooled out of her mouth and down her chin. You can't go yet, Granny said, not unkindly. I gotta give you your inheritance. Her eyes had a cold intensity, a purpose that extended beyond the grave. She grabbed my jaw with her cold, fleshy hand and tried to force it open. While living, she had been strong, but dead, her strength had doubled. I screamed. Granny dropped the teeth down my throat. I felt them catch in my esophagus. I coughed. I choked. I nearly vomited. The world slipped sideways, spinning out of control. I awoke in bed, Granny's bed. The quilts lay heavily upon me, trapping me in comfort, warmth, and the smell of my own sweat. My mouth tasted of last night's coffee left to ferment. My limbs felt sore and stiff. Slowly, I peeked out from under the covers. A stream of sunshine flowed in through the window and across the floor. The lazy creaking of branches and the fresh scent of honeysuckle coated me in familiarity. I was alone. I lay there for a long while, remembering my nightmare. I cursed my subconscious and mentally kicked myself for getting spooked. I thought about how I had let Granny down. Lying there in her bed, the past felt so far away. I considered how little I knew about my mother, about Granny, and about my ancestors. They had lived lifetimes. They were young once. They had loved, hurt, laughed, worked, and every single moment of it had meant something to them. All through the centuries, all those people, lost, gone, forgotten. Their stories died with them, and they became nothing more than cardboard caricatures and names on gravestones. Already I had forgotten events from my own life, and when I died, it would all fade into nothingness. Eventually, the call of nature prodded me out of my lethargy. I got up, dressed, and walked to the outhouse. The day held the gentle warmth that comes with spring, so tentative and glowingly sensual. Dew clung to my shoes and dampened the hems of my pants. I opened the door with the moon cut into it and ducked under a spider web. Inside, the cool darkness enfolded me. 2 slivers of light made it possible to see. One broke through a crack in the ceiling, and the other filtered in through the half moon. It landed on my chest when I turned around, marking me with a crescent. I lowered my pants and sat on the white seat Granny had installed over the hole. Sounds echoed inside the outhouse, the flow of my waters and the splash of my feces. A sudden pain in my bowels made me flinch. I continued, careful, fearful, and concerned. Finally, nothing remained to excrete. I found blood when I wiped. Returning to the house, I tried to convince myself I was fine. I pumped water into a pan and heated it on the wood stove. I poured it into a large ceramic bowl. Dipping my hands in the hot water, I splashed my face with it. I splashed again and again, then scrubbed with Granny's ivory soap. Washing around my lips, I noticed a tenderness in my jaw. I let my tongue wander, sensing, feeling the inside of my mouth. I had lost a tooth. The hole lay open and sore. As I poked around in the wound, the tooth next to it loosened and tumbled into the folds beneath my tongue. I spit it and a gob of blood into the basin. More teeth succumbed to the hysterical pressure of my tongue and fingers. I lost another, and then another. The water turned pink, then scarlet, with swirling blood and spit. The white pearls gathered in a pile with their legs and their rippled heads. Before long, they had all fallen out. All but two. I had only 2 teeth, in the front, on the bottom. When I looked at them, my mind filled with memories of torture and death, betrayal and sorrow, blood and sweat, black and white, north and south. The end.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to read that. Appreciate it.
I want to say that was lovely because it was, but it was great.
Good.
It's interesting how horror can be terrifying and at times kind of gross, and still at its heart really be about empathy and compassion.
Yes, that is one of the greatest things that I like about horror right there, is that you can convey deeply felt things,
Yeah.
and your beliefs through horror in a way that you can't necessarily through other things. You know, you can reach out and grab people a little more strongly than you can with other genres, I think.
And as a reader, I feel like you're asked to care a lot about the people who are going through these things and
Yes.
who have gone through them.
Yes.
That's something I really enjoy.
Yeah. Me too.
We like to take a breath between the stories because each story just deserves its own breath.
I like that.
Then we can clear and move on because we have another writer with another story.
Yay.
So our next reader is Maria Haskins. Maria Haskins is a Swedish-Canadian writer and reviewer of speculative fiction. Her fiction has appeared in Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Shimmer, Fireside, Flash Fiction Online, Interzone, Black Static, Cast of Wonders, and elsewhere. She writes a monthly roundup of speculative fiction short stories at Curious Fictions, and her short fiction treasures roundup appears quarterly in Strange Horizons. Her short story collection, 6 Dreams About the Train and Other Stories, is forthcoming from Trevedaccio Publishing in 2021. Maria was born and grew up in Sweden and currently lives just outside Vancouver with a husband, 2 kids, a lot of birds, a snake, and a very large black dog. Maria, that sounds like a really good life to me.
Well, it's noisy anyway most of the time. So
Well, now's your turn to make some noise.
yes.
Let's hear your story.
So thank you for having me, first of all. It's great to get the opportunity to read. And the story I'm reading is called Dead Meat. It was published in Apparition Lit #7, and each issue of the magazine has a theme, and the theme for this issue was retribution. So this is my story, Dead Meat. Hey, I nudged Ria with my foot because my clumsy hands are busy trying to make sense of the disassembled blast gun. Are you still dead? I'd let her rest in peace, but it's hard to stay awake and alert all by myself in this cramped supply room. Harder still to not just lie down and die next to her. Course I'm dead, you newt, Ria grumbles. She sounds as if we're still in bed together, as if she's not crumpled, broken, and unseeing on the floor beside me. as if her jaw and limbs aren't stiffening with rigor mortis. Now shut up, Gabby, and put that gun together. Damn it, Rhea. I'm an exobiologist, not a weapons expert. That makes her chuckle. Always does. Cute, but time's running out, you know. I know. Time's running out because it is still out there. On the other side of the supply room store. It killed Rhea and the others, and now it wants to kill me. I know it's out there, even though it shouldn't be. Even though this exoplanet is nothing but ice and rock and slimy undergrowth. I know it is prowling through every nook and cranny of our station. Its furtive movements are like a tickle underneath my skin, a shudder in my bones, a shiver in my skull. The door is enough to hold it at bay for now, but that smell, it's too familiar for outer space. I know that smell. It smells like a shallow hole dug in the ground and something left to fester. It smells like Grandpa's basement when I went there the last time with Mom. It smells like dead meat. My grandpa didn't believe in space travel. He scoffed at the exploration of exoplanets. He thought it was nothing but a reckless swindle by the global government and its lackey corporations. Why should we go off to other planets when we can't even take care of our own, he'd say. Nothing good will ever come of it. He was 108 years old and senile then, but right now, right here, trapped in a supply room at the ass end of a galaxy, slipping in and out of consciousness, I think he might have been right. Where's Tommy? I asked. Do you think he made it? Do you think he might have sent out an emergency alert? Rhea laughs. Tommy's dead meat, Gabby. We all are. What about Anneke? Antonio? Rhea keeps laughing, even though she's not breathing. I wish Rhea wasn't dead. I wish I could access the comm module in the central hub and call in an extraction team. I wish I had something to defend myself with instead of a gun in 15 useless pieces. Scope, grip frame, forearm, charging handle, power cell, and 10 parts that I can't figure out what they're for. 10 chunks of black metal that slip and tumble from my shaking hands, resisting every attempt to click-clack them together. Quit stalling and assemble that weapon, Gabby. That's an order. It's all you've got, remember? Gotta give it your best shot. Shut up, I gripe. You're dead, remember? She's unfazed as usual. I know, and you're a klutz. At least I'm doing better than you. Are you sure about that? My hands tremble. No. Above the door, the bright green light keeps flashing. It's shining in my eyes, making it hard to see, but what's there to see anyway? I'm barefoot, dressed in my baggy olive green pajamas, stuck on the floor of supply room 2B with a disassembled weapon and a dead body. The steel shelves above me are packed tight with crates of tech supplies and scientific equipment, spare parts and tools, but only one weapon, counted, one, in a case that previously contained these 15 pieces neatly stored in shipping foam. It's a real-life version of the recurring nightmare I had while I waited to hear what deep space hellhole would need a newbie exobiologist like me. All those nightmares ended the same way, with me helpless, either unarmed or unable to fire my weapon, pinned down by some huge and hungry life form on a hostile world. That's why I was so relieved when the company sent me here to a planet without sentient life, nothing but rocks, ice, and lichen. That's what the recruiter told me. An easy ride. How's that easy ride working out for you? Rhea asks, as if she's not only dead, but able to read my mind too. My giggle turns into a sob. Not so good. Not so good at all. At least we still have each other, Rhea chuckles, and by then I'm crying. You're such a sap, I snivel and reach for her hand. It's cold, but I squeeze it anyway, holding on as my mind flickers and sputters like a flame about to go out. First time I met Ria was in the airlock, putting on my thermo suit the day I arrived. I was still nauseous from cryo and the trip through the veil, still amazed and giddy to plant my feet on exoplanet soil. She was hefting that blaster of hers, looking like a kid's action figure, all biceps and buzz cut and tattoos. Don't go outside unaccompanied or unarmed. It's company policy on any exosurface, she admonished me, sizing up my shiny new gear with a jaundiced squint. What for? There's nothing out there but us and that damn lichen I'm supposed to study. That made her crack a smile. I smiled back. And sometimes that's all it takes. We stood together outside for a bit, looking at the rime-shimmering expanse of rocks and ridges. Dark green, slick swaths of growth peeked through the frost on the ground, trailing up the walls and vents and heat exchangers of the station. On the horizon, the golden band of planetary rings bisected an amethyst sky lit by 4 distant moons. I thought of Earth, thought of the life that teemed there, even now, though we'd done our best to snuff it out. This world seemed so bleak and fragile compared to where we'd come from. But here we were, out in space, finding new worlds to study, to trample, to mine, to process, to break. Maybe I thought of Grandpa even then, of how he'd said nothing good would ever come of it. But Ria's gloved hand closed around mine, firm and real, like a promise that didn't need to be spoken. And that was enough for me. The 15 pieces are scattered all over the floor. Nothing fits. Nothing clicks into place with that sexy, satisfying metal sound. Line them up, Gabby, like I showed you when we practiced. Damn it, Ria. I'm a brainiac, not a space marine. She snorts. My hands look green in the light, veins a darker shade than the skin. The pattern of veins makes me think of roots, makes me think of moss, makes me think of mold and slick algae in an unkempt aquarium, makes me think of Grandpa and Mom and the basement and the writing on the wall and... No, not that. That was a lifetime and a universe away. I grab hold of my unraveling thoughts, forcing them together. That light above the door, it used to flash red. I'm almost sure of it. A siren sounded, some sort of alarm, so loud it was deafening. That's what woke us. There's still a faint ringing in my ears, but no sirens, not anymore. No screams either. There's no one left to scream, no one but me. I need this gun. I need to make it work. It's the one thing I was never able to learn in training, no matter how I practiced. But I've got to remember how it's done. I've got to remember Ria's calloused, no-nonsense hands guiding mine, showing me the steps. I can't let the memories melt and drip like green wax, twisting, turning, changing into something else, into Grandpa's basement. The mold trailing across the windows, creeping up and down the walls, growing into patterns and symbols, spelling out hidden words and indecipherable messages, as if it had a mind of its own, as if it were a creature spread out in spores and slimy tendrils, whispering to me of other deaths and horrors yet to come. Mom shouldn't have brought me there. I was only 8. I snivel, tasting the snot and salt in the back of my throat. No, don't lose it. Don't pass out. No more of that. Scope clicks into that round part, the power cell. Don't think, Gabby, just do it. I choke back the tears. Bossy pants. We can't all be slackers like you, Gabby baby. Drop dead, Ria. That makes us both giggle. A ragged madhouse cackle, the kind that turns into sobs and shivers in the end. How's your memory? Ria asks when we've settled down. Do I take cream or sugar in my coffee? You don't drink coffee. Just checking. It's not normal, talking to dead people. I know, so why are you talking to me? Why are we stuck in here? You're the brainiac. You figure it out. I try to remember, but all my memories are slippery and green. We woke up in bed. That alarm was blaring. In the darkness, a light flashing, red or green, I can't remember. I told Ria we had to run, and we ran. Ran from something that tried to kill us, something vast and hungry. I remember crashing and sliding through the never-ending corridors, every door locked and every inch of the floor slick with blood and gore. It was just like in a bad horror vid or the worst kind of cryo nightmare. What I remember most of all is Ria saying my name before she died. Her voice tight and low, as if she could barely speak, as if something was stuck in her throat, choking her. I remember holding her. I remember dragging her in here with me. I remember pulling the door shut, but my memories shift and bend every time I touch them, as if they're alive. As if the act of remembering is altering them, tainting them. What could kill us on this miserable hunk of rock and ice anyway? There's nothing here but us and that damn lichen. This is not lichen, I told the company as soon as I'd scanned the stuff. Didn't even need to run a DNA analysis to know for sure. I wrote it all down in my report, tried to make them understand. Lichen is a composite organism that arises from algae or cyanobacteria living among filaments of multiple fungi, including yeast, in a symbiotic relationship. This exoplanetary species bears only a cursory resemblance to Terran lichen. The only thing I can say with any certainty is that just like Terran lichen, this species, while plant-like, is not a plant. I am hopeful that my chemical analysis of its secretions might provide further insight into its physiology, like they cared. Like the presence of an exobiologist wasn't a formality. Like they worried about anything except the minerals hidden deep in the crust beneath that growth. Like anything mattered, except what might be strip mined and processed and sold. Another sob tears through my throat. What the hell am I doing here? What are we doing here? Don't think about it. None of it matters. Nothing matters except the gun. I wipe my hands, close my eyes, deep breath, try again, lining up the pieces on the floor. Clip to the left. Thank you, Ria. I'd kiss you if you weren't dead. Prude. I close my eyes. I let the hands remember because the brain won't. Every thought is melting and distorting, folding in upon itself. The smell of Grandpa's basement, green windows, green light shining through, shadows on the wall, patterns shifting and coalescing like one of those images that slips into focus if you stare at it long enough, revealing itself only when you shift your gaze slightly off center. It's a dream. Nothing makes sense. Everything is green. I'm in my green bed, wearing my green pajamas. Tommy and the others are in the green kitchen. Ria is reading as usual, waving her green coffee cup at me. I look down at the weight in my hands. I'm hefting a green, half-assembled blast gun. Why? I don't drink coffee, Ria says and scowls at me. I know that. Says here, she continues, waving her green book, that lichen are among the oldest living organisms and among the first living things to grow on fresh rock exposed after an event such as a landslide. I know that too, I say, annoyed, but I already told you, this is not lichen. Anyone want waffles? Antonio asks, his green face askew, slipping off the skull beneath. Focus. I look at Ria, but my vision is blurry green, as if the lichen is growing on my corneas. I'm not sure what I see anymore. Ria, if this is a dream, If I'm just imagining this, if this is only, will you be alive if I wake up, if I get out of here? She snorts. I'm pretty sure I'm dead meat, no matter what. A pause, her voice more serious now. Don't mess this up, Gabby. What if I already messed up? What if there's nothing in here but us and that damn lichen? What if this planet decided to get rid of us before we did what we always do? Destroy, devastate. Ria's voice is steady. Then it doesn't matter anyway. So why not give it your best shot? Ria? Yeah? Are we still in bed? Did we never even leave our bunk when the alarm sounded? Did we never run through the corridors, never slam the door shut, never grab the weapon off the shelf, never get trapped in here at all? Is my body, yours, Annike's, Tommy's, Antonio's, overgrown with this choking presence, a holobiont, a complex composite organism sprouted from microscopic spores lodged in our hair and skin and flesh? Is the green slick mat of this ancient planet encompassing exoplanetary life form enveloping our limbs and eyes and organs right now? Are its filaments and root-like rhizines grabbing onto marrow, sipping on our fluids while infusing our brains with its psychoactive hallucinogenic secretions? Is it hooked into my cortex to keep me under, threading together slivers of life dreams and nightmares, memories and terror into a story I choose to believe is true, that the monster is outside, not inside, not already devouring and digesting me? A story in which I can still be rescued, can still get away, can still save myself with one almighty blast from this ridiculously large and unnecessarily disassembled gun. Ria, quit stalling, Gabby. Either lay down and die quietly with the rest of us, or get on with it. I nod. I know the truth. The truth Grandpa told me, that we shouldn't be here, that nothing good will ever come of it. Deep breath. Inhale that smell, like Grandpa's basement. We'd been away for a few months. It was one of Mom's jobs that took us out of town. Someone was supposed to check on Grandpa, but they never did. They just took Mom's money and left him to fend for himself. Mom never forgave herself. I remember standing at the top of the stairs, looking down into the basement, inhaling that smell. It was a humid summer's day outside, the air wet and slick on my skin. Grandpa always hated drafts, complained about them even in the summer. In that basement, every window, every door was sealed tight, weather stripping and duct tape covering every crack and space and crevice, shutting out the world. I remember the slick black-green mold trailing its grasping, greedy life over the windows and the walls, slippery rot in the cup and bowl he'd left on the table. Grandpa in that downstairs bathroom, his skin like a map of decay and rebirth, another life form covering his bloated, abandoned husk, feeding off what used to be him. At least we found him. Even if it was too late, at least we got him out of there. Who will find us, Ria? Who will ever get us out of here? There's the click. The gun put together, the pleasing hum of the power cell charging up, ready to go up with a bang. I kiss Ria one last time, tasting death in my mouth and hers. Ria, is this a dream or a nightmare? Is this reality or a reckless swindle? Is this place trying to kill us, or are we already dead? Did this life form, this planet, already exact its revenge for our intrusion? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I don't give a shit anymore. I love you, Rhea. Don't go mushy on me, Gabby. Just get on with it. Give it your best shot. Damn it, Rhea. I'm an exobiologist, not a deep space gunslinger. One last chuckle. One last deep breath. Then I kick the door open, squeeze the trigger, and fire.
Oh, Maria, that was gorgeous. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. It was excellent. Thank you. It was fun.
It was neat. And Daniel, it happened again.
Yes, it did.
It's so interesting to us how the stories pretty much every time seem to work together.
I was thinking that when Angel was reading hers too. It's very,
We heard from ghosts tonight,
yeah.
and they
After
really need
we don't plan it that way.
Yeah.
It just sort of works out.
to. But those ghosts really needed to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being the ones who tell the stories for them.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be back again next week. We're actually still firming up our schedule, but I do know that we did lock in Lauren Rhodes, so that is going to be another great reading for sure.
Cool.
And you can keep up to date about upcoming authors by visiting storyhour2020.com. And you can see any programs you may have missed at the Story Hour page on Facebook. So again, Maria Angel, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. Daniel, thank you so much for starting Story Hour and bringing it to us every week. And thank you, all of you who are here with us, all of you who are watching later. Thank you for joining us in spinning the fictive dream and keeping Story Hour, keeping ourselves together with stories for an hour every week.
We sure need them right now.
We do.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.